Well, the Cuban community in Miami better have a seat for this one, because Donald Trump is going after Cubans and Cuban Americans and has subjected them to a new harsh deportation order, including deporting a pro-Trump Cuban rapper who developed a song, an anthem, if you will, that was a huge part of him getting elected and winning Florida the last time around. See, when you ride the tiger, you fear the dismount. And everybody in the Cuban community in Miami, and I live in Miami and I know them well, who thought, well, he's not going after our immigration group. He may be anti-immigrant, but he's not anti-Cuban. Well, you can now break out the smelling salts because he's going after the Cuban community. Now, there are some within the Cuban community, the hardliners, that gather, for coffee on Calle Ocho every day and talk about what's going on in Havana, that applauded Donald Trump going after certain people, like a 71-year-old who came and settled here in America because he used to be a member of the Communist Party in Cuba, and they celebrated on that. Now they're going after just ordinary Cuban and people that want to live the American dream. And how do you justify that in a county, for instance, in Miami-Dade County that's 70% Hispanic, and 50% of that is Cuban? I'm Michael Popok. You're here on Legal AF. Let's get down to, once again, Donald Trump not only disappointing, but attacking a core constituency that got him elected. And I'm going to particularly focus on the Cuban community, and not just because I'm in Miami, but because it matters that people recognize that Donald Trump is a charlatan, that he's a fraud. And now he's going around, because he doesn't care, he's going around attacking the very groups that got him elected. So they were happy on one hand, I suppose, when Tomas Hernandez, who was 71 years old and had worked in Cuba's foreign intelligence agency, migrating to the United States after that, got arrested at his Miami home and detained. They wanted a firmer hand, the Cuban Americans in Miami, to go after former members of Castro's party and get rid of them. I get it. It was called by one Latin American expert at Florida International University, FIU, a political gift to the Cuban American hardliners. But then, how do you explain that as part of the Trump's mass deportation pledge, he's now coming after some of the 2.4 million Cuban Americans who backed his presidency not once, but twice? Look, I flew down to Miami during the last election. I flew down to Miami when Biden won the first time. And I saw the flags and the pickup trucks. I saw the chanting. I heard the rap music, and I heard everything from everybody in the Democratic Party and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris being called socialists or communists or Marxists, or Kamala Harris being called Joe Biden's nurse, to worse. Okay. And one thing I've told people, knowing Miami politics as well as I do, having lived here for 20 years, I have a practice that's national, but I live in Miami now, is that the dirty secret of the Republican Party is that they went after the Hispanic population here, primarily through Spanish radio. You listen to Spanish radio leading up to an election and during an election, it has been co-opted by the Republican Party. Now, because of the Bay of Pigs fiasco and Kennedy back in the 1960s, Cubans who would naturally align themselves with Democratic policies became Republicans. And that hasn't changed. So some people are confused because they're like, well, the Hispanics are 70% Democrats, although that number is going down. Yes, but not in Miami and not in Cuban Miami, which is primarily Republican, 70 or 80% Republican. I have many friends that are Republican. Doesn't mean they're MAGA. Doesn't mean I can't have a civil conversation with them. And they live here in Miami. But now, for instance, one of the people that's facing deportation because Trump just revoked the temporary humanitarian parole for over 300,000 Cubans. I've met a lot of Cubans, and I would ask them, when did you come here? Because it used to be very difficult to get out of Cuba. And they would say, I came here this year. I came here 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Right, because they were here under temporary protective status, TPS, which Donald Trump has gotten rid of to protect the Venezuelan population, the Haitian population. And you'd think with Marco Rubio, who's a proud Cuban American, who talks a lot about his family coming here after the overthrow as opposed to before the overthrow. There's a lot of battle here, a lot of line drawing in Miami about when did your grandparents get here? Were they here before the overthrow or after the overthrow by Castro? And it matters to that community, what your pedigree is, what your bona fides are. And Marco Rubio has been challenged about when his family exactly got here, but he's a proud Cuban American. I've met him before. I know people that know him. We're 1 degree or 2 degrees separated. He is our Secretary of State the last time I looked. At least that's what the official portrait says. What's he doing about it? Little Marco silent and gagged. Once again, he's no longer our Secretary of State. It's really Steve Witkoff, a golf buddy of Donald Trump that runs around meeting all the heads of state and cutting all the deals or not cutting all the deals while Marco Rubio stews in his office and does really nothing. I mean, for a minute, Elon Musk was the Secretary of State and now Steve Witkoff. So, but why didn't Marco Rubio stand up for the Cuban community? And shouldn't the Cuban community and these people that have now been, who are about to be deported, friends and neighbors, cousins and nephews, shouldn't he pay the price the next time he's up for election in Miami? I would think so. Now, there's a Cuban rapper who is part of the group that's going to be deported. He created a hit song called Homeland and Life, in Spanish, Patria y Vida, that became the unofficial anthem of the communist protest on the island in 2021. And Marco Rubio praised it. His name is El Funky. I think I'm getting that right. El Funky. His real name is Alexier Marquez. And he's given 30 days to leave the United States. So here's yet another example of Donald Trump biting the hand, chopping and amputating the hand that got him elected. And I would hope that the Cuban Americans in Miami, who are a political dynamo, a political dynasty here, who are hardworking, who have built Miami, modern Miami, into what it is. You look around at law firms, at banks, at hospitals, at charities, at real estate development, you name it. You'll see a Cuban American or somebody that emigrated from Cuba at the top of the ticket. And I appreciate that. Just as I appreciate the hardworking Haitian community in Miami, the hardworking Venezuelan community, Mexican, Brazilian, and you fill in the blank. It's an international community built on immigration. Shouldn't be locking the door or pulling up the ladder. And you have to remember these things. Don't justify it. Don't try to reconcile it. Well, we're going to have to put up with Cousin Benny being deported today. Why? Why does that have to happen in a society, in a country that's built on giving us your poor, give us your poor, your sick, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free? Why does that have to happen? And remember that at the ballot times. I'm hoping this will chip away, because in order for a Democrat president in 2028 to win back Florida, and it is possible, you have to run up the vote total in the Democratic strongholds of Palm Beach, Broward, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami. You got to run it. You'll win him. You always win him. Biden won it. Hillary Clinton won him. But you got to win by a lot, not by a little. If you win by a lot and you overperform, you will compensate as a presidential candidate for what happens in the rest of the state. Because, there's an old joke. The more north you go in Florida, the more south you are. And the more south you go, the more north you are, because of the northern influence and Midwest influence into lower parts of Florida. So you have to compensate for the upper regions of Florida above Palm Beach County, right? And west in Orlando, all of that. And if you can do that, then you win Florida. Florida is really red now. I don't say ruby red, but it's pretty red. It was purple, it was blue. Obama won it twice. We can win it back. But we have to remind voting groups and power groups like the Cuban group, the Cuban American group in Miami, that while they're out there celebrating Donald Trump coming to Doral Golf Course and coming to the community of Doral, and they all showed up on the podium for a prayer breakfast and everything else. Is he really working for you? Or is he working for himself? Because all I've been watching for the last 150 plus days is Donald Trump creating a printing press and influence peddling in the White House to line his family's pockets with up to $1 billion already and more to come. How has he helped you at the gas pump, at the unemployment line, at the food shelter, at the homeless shelter? All right? How has he helped you make ends meet? How does he make you with your kitchen table purse, wallet, and pocketbook economics. How? Leave it in comments if you believe he has. How has he helped you get onto the information highway with high-speed internet in rural communities? How has he done that? How has he made us more secure financially, economically, and from a military standpoint? He has not. We'll continue to follow it right here. You're on Legal AF already. Take a moment, hit the subscribe button. We're continuing to build this pro-democracy channel towards 700,000 subscribers. Come over to our YouTube channel. Come over to our Substack, where we post these documents and everything else that you'll find really, really interesting, along with analysis at the intersection of law and politics, and the podcast, Legal AF, the podcast, every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Midas Touch Network. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.